Today, I'm going to share with you 50 things that were polite 50 years ago. So that would have made me about 24. So hold on. Hi, Grandma Bev here from Life with Grandma Bev, and welcome back to my channel. I ran across an article in my little news break paper that I get, and it was an article by a gal named Jenna Jury, Jury. And it was 50 things that were considered polite 50 years ago. So that would have put me in my 20s. And I looked through these, I thought, that's true. This is things that were drummed into us as children. Now remember, my glasses are slipping. I hate to sound like back in the old days, but when we were being raised, oh, here's a truck. I bet it's my Amazon. Back in the old days, when I was a child, things were a lot more disciplined. I mean, you got to admit it. I can give you some examples. Coming up here. I mean, I went to a Catholic school, right? And the nuns there, of course, you always hear about the rulers. Well, it's true. I was put in a closet one time, so I kind of snuck into people's lunches. And if you complained to your parents, my dad was, the nuns are right, to the point to where when I went to high school, and that was from 9th through 12th, the nuns had a parents' meeting, and they said that the girls should not have any social activities or events during their freshman year. You could maybe start letting them go to like a public game or something in your sophomore year. Junior year, you could maybe go out with a group. Senior years, when, it was probably a good time to let them date. My dad followed all that. The nuns said, I don't. Of course, I didn't say it like that because I would have gotten. He followed what they said. So here's the first thing. I guess they're not numbered. Okay, children addressing adults as Mr., Mrs., or Miss, or Ms. now. It says in the 70s, it was perfectly normal and expected that a child would say either Mr., Mrs., or Miss when addressing an adult. While this practice is still, I should put it in front of me, it's still expected in some situations, like a classroom, maybe, it is less prevalent. Today, hearing a child address an adult by their first name is perfectly normal. I remember when my sons were in hockey, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, there was one kid who addressed me at that time as Mrs. Escalon. And I noticed it because, whoa, mom is raising him right. Okay, men standing when a woman leaves the table. Now you see that in some of the movies, a woman gets up, like to go to the restroom, the men stand. Not anymore. Good example was on Pretty Woman, when she's at dinner with the guy, the guy who's paying her, and two other men, and she goes to get up right away, and they stand up, so she sits back down, and she's standing. Because it's just how we were raised to do. Okay, a man pulling the chair out for a woman. You don't see that much anymore. My father would turn over in his grave. Okay, excusing oneself from the table. Now, for one thing, how many families eat at the table? All of you together. When I was growing up, we all ate at the table, and we had to ask to be excused before we could get up. There were no cell phones, nothing back then, so there's nothing to tempt us to, So that was that. Okay, writing formal paper invitations. Well, that's gone. Taking hats off at the table. That's something I still notice, is guys wearing like the baseball caps, and they don't take them off when they get inside, like in a restaurant. or in church or anywhere like that. My dad just had fits. When, like my sister would date somebody and they had a hat, or, he didn't take his hat off, and, oh my God, he would have a fit. Not wearing a hat during a church service. Okay. Men never wore hats in church. Now, when I was growing up, you always had to have something on your head, even if it was just a little doily or a little rag thing. The women always, now this was in the Catholic Church, the women always had to wear hats. Hats, something on their head. It was wearing a hat, a regular hat by guys, was seen as a sign of disrespect. Okay, waiting for everyone else to be served before eating. I still do that. Things that were drummed into you, and I mean really drummed into you, as a kid, sticks with you. I always just automatically wait until everybody's seated and everybody's starting to eat. Now, lots of the other people start eating, and sometimes then I'll start eating, but still think back to the old days. Men walking on the outside of the sidewalk while the women walk on the inside. See, I noticed that too, because Bob will walk on this side of me, no matter what side of the street we're on, because that's our comfortable side we're used to having, walk on, sit, in bed, everything is, But you wouldn't have seen my father walk that way with my mother. Okay, not answering the phone during mealtime. No, you never answered the phone during mealtime. Never. Of course, we didn't have cell phones, but you would have had to get up and go answer the phone. It's And there weren't even answering machines, so it's not like the answering machine will get it if it's important, right? They'll leave a message if it's important, which is what I say. Turning the television off during mealtimes. No way was the TV on when we were eating dinner. Unless, I remember one time there was a baseball game, and I think the local team, the Oakland A's, were in it during the World Series. And my dad let him have it on in the other room. Another time when maybe it would be on was if it was something really happening, like somebody really important died, like a president or somebody, and it was on the TV, Had to be something like that, or like the Pope. Offering your seat. Now, this is the one that bugs the heck out of me. Offering your seat to a woman, pregnant woman, or the elderly. Man, I would have gotten jerked up out of a seat by my dad. Might make my dad sound terrible, but that's how we were raised back then. We went anywhere. And another woman, someone older than me that I was as a kid, walked in. It was always, if you offer your seat up to that person. And I complained, "Hey, Dad, but I'm tired." He says, "Well, your day will come." My day has come and gone, and nobody does that anymore. Very rarely. And when they do, I make sure, oh, thank you so much. Because, gosh, you'll find out. I mean, a lot of you think you're really tired and weak all the time now. I got news for you. It gets worse as you get older. It is hard to stand for long periods of time. The back starts hurting, you get really weak. And it's so rare if you're offered a seat. Half the time it's a family, a whole kid sitting down, like in a restaurant when you're waiting to be called. Here they all are sitting there, and we're all, just about, Anyway, that's a sore subject with me. Holding the door open for the person behind you. I just automatically do that. To me, that's being courteous. Now, if they don't say thank you, that pisses me off. Because if somebody holds the door for me, I always say thank you. Calling first before showing up at someone's house. Now, I will not just pop into somebody's house. If I did, it'd be a rarity. Really a rarity. Because I don't like people showing up in my place unannounced. When my mom and dad were still alive, they go to the church here in this town. And sometimes on Sundays, they just drop in, right? Half the time I wasn't out of bed yet. So this one time, the doorbell's ringing. I'm on the couch, but she couldn't see me. But she's looking like this through the window. The window's on the... And so we finally put one of those film things up on the glass. And then she walks around the backyard. And looks in the sliding glass. And I'm like this, you know. I felt bad, but I was in no way in a mood. And then come to find out, there was somebody visiting from out of town, a friend of theirs, who they wanted to bring over. And you know, so I was really glad. I mean, that's terrible to be that way, but I learned that back when I was married before, and his sister and husband would always say, call before you come over. So I just got in the habit of that, and I go, oh yeah, I see why, because I want people to call before they just pop in. Okay, answering your phone, even if you don't know who it is. Even if I know who it is, a lot of times I don't answer it. Because sometimes I'm just not in the mood to talk. Or I'm in the middle of something. I mean, I'm glad you can see now who's calling. Back when I was growing up, you couldn't. So once you answered, you're on. And of course, growing up in my household back then was, if it's for one of us, we're not home, because we had a lot of bill collectors calling, and so we were trained on to answer the phone and lie. Calling a person back after a missed phone call. If you missed a phone call, the polite thing to do 50 years ago was to call them back. Not now, I don't. I figure, it's important to leave a message or they'll call me back. Okay, excuse me. Children waiting to be spoken to. I notice now that if a child's trying to say something, the parent will say, oh, let's also talk. You know, and maybe we're all in a conversation, a serious conversation or something. Oh no, let's also talk. It's like children are just raised to whatever they want to do, they do it. When and if. It's not going to be that way when they get up in the adult world. Maybe it will be, I don't know. Calling a person ma'am or sir. That was standard practice in the 70s. I don't particularly, I don't know if I really call him ma'am or sir. It just depends, you know. But I notice, I can always tell which guys have been in the military. They'll go, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. They're very polite because it's drummed into them. Wearing black to a funeral. To me, that's what you do when you're going to a funeral. You wear at least a dark color. It's a sign of respect. Sending out thank you cards. That's always something that's popped the shit out of me. I will send gifts to various relatives. And I finally have to contact them and say, did you get the gift? Because nobody just sent a text saying, hey, the gift came, thank you so much. That's all you got to do. Minute something gets delivered here, I right away let the person know that it got here, and thank you so much. It's beautiful, or you know, whatever it happens to be. Rarely get a thank you card now. Allow ladies to go first. Yeah, well, that's sometimes that still happens, and sometimes it doesn't. When I really notice it is if you're in a restaurant. Here's Daddy. Bob just got back home. In a restaurant, it was always drummed into us that when the waitress or waiter asked for our orders, it was always the oldest woman who should say it first. Not one of the guys, the oldest woman, and then down from there. Can't tell you how many times I've had somebody younger than me jump in and say, you know, knocking before entering a room. Well, yeah, I mean, you could catch somebody in an embarrassing position. Hopefully not, but always knock. Addressing a person formally during any correspondence. Well, you hardly ever do correspondence. I don't even know if they even teach you in school anymore how to write a proper letter. You know, we've got the date and the address and all that stuff. It was always courteous to write out, dear Mr. Mrs. So-and-so, dear Miss So-and-so. Sending in your RSVP on time. That is just a matter of being considerate, because usually if it's like a wedding, they've got to order, X amount of meals. And if all of a sudden you show up and they don't have enough meals, who's going to go without a meal so you can have one? Dressing up for an airplane flight. I've gotten used to doing this because, we've done a lot of flying in our adult years. And they did used to dress up. You look at some of the old movies, and the women are dressed up, the men are dressed up. Half the time they're in a suit. No, I don't mind that being changed. Because so many times nowadays you're in such uncomfortable seats. Guy, you better be wearing something comfy. Being on time for events. Well, that just to me goes without saying. I'm always there at least 10 minutes ahead of time. Offering to help someone with their coat. That's something I notice, even with my own husband. When I'm trying to put like a sweater or a coat on, like in the movies, I would appreciate if you'd help me get that around, Giving your undivided attention when someone was speaking. Well, I try to do that, but there's some people that if you don't jump in and when they take a breath, you're not going to get to say what you want to say. And especially as you get older, you can't remember then if you don't say it as soon as you think it. Addressing a person by their last name. Well, that one I think we already covered that. Asking someone if they mind if you smoke beforehand. Well, I don't notice that as much nowadays, that somebody would just light up before asking if you mind. And a lot of the time, depending on where we're at, if they ask, do you mind if I smoke? If they ask, a lot of times I'll just say, no, go ahead. But smokers are a lot more courteous than, say, back in the old days. The only problem is I like the smell of it, and it makes me want to smoke one, too. Quietly tipping a service worker. Nowadays, you just leave it right out, hand it right to them, or you add it on your credit card bill and stuff. But back in the old days, you kind of slipped it to them. Dress up for dinner. Well, when you go out to dinner, it just makes sense that you would dress up. Now, everything's gotten casual everywhere you go. So, I'm guilty of it myself now. Waiting for a person to introduce you at a social event. People don't think of that either. And half the time, I can't remember who the person is. So I'll come up with a clever way to find out their name. Bringing a new neighbor food. Well, we don't do that anymore. Offering an elderly person your arm. Well, after having my parents, go through their old age till they died, more cognizant of it. You need some help. Even if I need help myself, if there's somebody that I think looks older than me, I'll offer to help them. Same with, like I was talking earlier about the giving up your seat. I will offer my seat to an elderly person who's probably my age, and what happens when you get stuff drummed into you. Offering to help carry heavy groceries or load into their car. Remember when the grocery stores, whoever loaded up your bag, they always brought it out to the car for you? That's why Bob goes instead of me. No. I'm just used to, if I go to the store, I'm going to be loading it in by myself, and I load it back in the house. Commenting if someone lost weight. I try to, if it's noticeable, because at times I've been known to lose weight, and nobody ever notices or says anything. They say something like to Bob, whoa, look at how thin you've gotten. What about me? I was on the same diet, I do try to if I notice someone's lost weight, because, I know how hard it is to lose weight. Keep your elbows off the table. That was drummed into me, put your elbows on. Nowadays, it's just a free-for-all. I see people all the time in their elbows. So if other people have their elbows on, I put mine on. Do not eat with your fingers. Well, certain things you have to. Like this picture is showing a kid reaching his hand into peanuts that are in the shell. How else would you eat them? Some things you eat with your fingers. Some things you don't. Holding a lady's back while you're walking. Well, no, I don't. That sounds like how my dad treated my mom. engaging in polite small talk. I always, I guess because my mother was in retail for over 30 years and my daughter worked in retail. I never did. And same with restaurants. I know my daughter worked in restaurants. I don't know. I always just try to be pleasant to them, even if they're pissing me off. Because I sure wouldn't want to be in their shoes walking around. I try to act friendly, and then they're friendlier to you. They tend to do more for you. Saying, you're welcome. Yes. If somebody holds a door for me, I always say thank you. Especially if it's a little kid. Thank you. And then say you're welcome if somebody says thank you to you. Return a casserole dish with more food. Now, I don't remember ever doing that. My thing was always returning something cleaner than when it came to me. And I still will do that. Men picking up the check. Well, of course, we know how that's gone, ladies. To me, it's whoever's got the money picks up the check. Waiting for a woman to extend her hand before offering yours. Right, I wait because I don't want to touch people's hands. So unless they reach out to mine, since COVID especially, someone reaches to me, I will do it. But otherwise, no, I don't. Going to the door to pick up a date. Well, I don't do that anymore. But when I was back in the old days, if they didn't come to the door to pick me up, my dad wouldn't let me go out. Opening a car door for the woman. Now, that's something that's fallen by the side, too. I still see some of us older folks, the car door open. I get mine open sometimes. It just depends on where we're at. But before, in the old days, having an ashtray out for guests, no. Not going to put an ashtray out when you don't want people smoking in your house anyway. A man ordering for a woman, no. Unless you've already told them exactly what you want. You speak for yourself. Saying please, well, that's just a word to me. Oh, this is number 50 already, huh? That you always say please for things, or like thank you, or please. Would you like some butter with that? Yes, please. Am I sounding like an old lady? So that'll do it. What'd you think? Remember any of that stuff? But like I say, you got to realize why it affects me maybe a lot more than it would you, because I was raised up a whole way different than how I raised my kids, how my kids are raising theirs. I'm talking a couple of generations back now, and it's really gone lax. So, I don't know. Now, tell me what you think. Please make comments below. Share, like, and subscribe. I love you all. Bye.